And now on BBC One, the start of a new series in which Mark Curry looks at some of Hollywood's great silent comedy stars, beginning this afternoon with the Keystone Kops.
This was Hollywood 70 years ago, when the movies were young and silent. The talking picture hadn't yet been invented, and the films of the day were often fast, furious and funny. At that time, they were making one comedy film every few days. And studio activity like this was commonplace. Everything depended on action. Hello. For the next 6 weeks, we're going to be looking at the bygone age of Hollywood. The comedy film was very popular. And in order to keep up with the demand, the producers had to make more and more films, which meant more and more comedians had to be used. We're going to be looking at 6 of the most talented. Some you'll know, like Laurel and Hardy and Buster Keaton, but others like Harry Langdon, Lupino Lane, and Larry Seaman may not be so familiar. But believe me, you're in for a treat. They're all very funny and very clever performers. We've called our first program The Keystone Days, because in 1912, this man, Mack Sennett, set up his own film studio in Hollywood. The Keystone Company trademark on a film guaranteed fun, thrills and laughter to the early cinema goer. Films were produced at an alarming rate to keep up with the public demand. Don't forget, cinemas were new enough to be a novelty. This early Keystone film features a nasty villain who ties poor Mabel Norman to the railway line. Producer Mack Sennett plays the hero. He persuades a well-known motor racing driver of the day, Barney Oldfield, to lend a hand. As the wicked villain races towards poor Mabel in a stolen train, the Keystone Kops join in the chase. Will our hero rescue Mabel in time? Wow, exciting stuff. Remember, in those days, things had to be filmed for real. So you're probably wondering how the train managed to miss the actors while traveling at such a high speed. Well, let's see if I can explain. When a film is shown in the cinema, it runs at a constant speed. The film was projected at about 20 pictures a second. The cameraman normally filmed at projection speed, but if he slowed down his camera, he took less pictures. The actors worked as normal. Trains and cars drove at a safe speed that wasn't dangerous. So the cameraman filmed at 10 pictures a second or even less. The slower he filmed, the faster the action looked on the cinema screen. And that's how Mabel was rescued in the nick of time. The technique is called undercranking and is still used today. Let's now see another film that uses undercranking to good effect. It's the Keystone Kops in Love in a Police Station. The police chief wants a group photograph taken. But what he doesn't know is that the photographer is a notorious bank robber in disguise. In a flash, the money is stolen from the chief's safe. The chief discovers an empty safe and a vital clue to the robber's identity. Desperate Dan has left his calling card. This gives the Keystone Kops an excuse to leap into action as only they can. Many famous stars started out in a cop's uniform. Charlie Chaplin, Fatty Arbuckle, Chester Conklin, Charlie Chase, Billy Bevan. In fact, it seems that almost everyone who was anyone in the silent days had worked for Mack Sennett at one time or another. It looks as if the bungling cops have failed again. Desperate Dan has got clean away. Another good example of the type of comedy that the Keystone Studios used to turn out is this next one. It has the unusual title of Wandering Willies, and watch out for some incredible stunt work. It features a very funny man, Billy Bevan, who is trying to elope with his sweetheart. The furious father gives chase, but not until he's called the Keystone Kops. Mack Sennett really had a winner in the idea of a group of well-intentioned but useless policemen who just couldn't get it together. But in reality, these men worked hard, long days making this sort of film and must have collected many a grazed leg or scratched elbow in the process. Did you notice once again the use of undercranking to give the effect that they really were being dragged along at 50 miles an hour? Did you also notice how far they jumped out of the window? Well, let's look at that one more closely, because no one really risked injury to get that effect. First, father gets to the window. The cameraman stops filming. He then films a dummy that is thrown out of the window. When the dummies hit the ground, the camera is stopped, and the actor's put back into the shot. The camera turns again, and the actor gets up. It all looks very convincing. Right, now let's move on. We're going to look at another early chase film made in 1915, and it features two old-time comedians, Chester Conklin and Max Swain. Chester has kidnapped Max Swain's wife in the postman's motorcycle. The Keystone Kops are called. Swain chases after the villain on horseback. Look at the cops very carefully, because it's rumoured that one of them was Charlie Chaplin just filling in between films. This film was described at the time as the most daring motorcycling comedy ever released, and one of the funniest. Chester Conklin was an early Keystone Kop. In 1913, he regularly earned $3 a day for wearing a cop uniform. He progressed to supporting and featured roles. In Love, Speed and Thrills, Conklin really hammed it up. His large moustache made him look evil. His audiences loved to hate him. Keystone films never gave the audience a rest. Mind you, it doesn't look as if Minta Durfee, the girl in the sidecar, had much of a rest either. Max Swain had joined Keystone in 1913. He appeared in most of the Fun Factory comedies. This was one of the few films in which he played a good guy. Well, one of the silliest films that Max had ever made was this one, and it involves a polo match. All that matters is the ball. Where it goes, they go. Gid Up was the unusual but apt title of this film. It did very well at the box office. Cinema owners pleaded with the film producers to supply anything that was new and that moved. Max Sennett was happy to oblige them and make a few dollars in the process. The champion polo player is our old friend Billy Bevan. Well, that film was made in 1925, and did you notice the use of animated cartoon work? Well, let's show you how Billy Bevan was kicked over the goalpost. In this action replay, you can see that Billy picks up the ball. The horse kicks out. We see Billy being kicked by a false horse's foot. As Billy jumps into the air, a cartoon man takes his place in the next shot by the use of clever editing. The cartoon man gives the impression of Billy flying through the air. Precise editing then cuts to Billy falling the last few feet from the posts to the ground. Clever, weren't they? Anyway, let's finish this week with the Keystone Kops chase, featuring yet again Billy Bevan. Billy Bevan was a great hit when he appeared in the Max Sennett comedies throughout the 20s. When he was put into funny situations, his reaction usually brought the house down with laughter. Bevan's screen character was a mixture of slapstick and situation comedy. He coped with whatever unlikely story Max Sennett dreamt up. Bevan was one of those comics who never really reached great heights like Keaton or Chaplin, but he did make it where others didn't. He moved into the talkies, a feat not many of the big silent stars managed. Max Sennett used every trick in the book to make people laugh. In fact, it's said that even to this day, no man has made more people laugh than he has. Max Sennett's comedies were perhaps the funniest to come out of Hollywood. But when the sound films arrived in 1927, the public started to give the silent comedies a miss. Sennett fell out of favour, but these marvellous films are still here for us to enjoy. Max Sennett was perhaps one of the greatest laughter makers of Hollywood. See you next week.
And Make 'em Laugh is back at 4:25 next Friday, when you can see silent comedy star Harry Langdon.